Hey YouTube, welcome back to a little Friday Philosophy on what can only be described as an absolutely perfect evening here in northeastern Nebraska. It is upper 60s, absolutely no wind, no bugs. It's been a fantastic day and a pretty solid kickoff to the Memorial Day weekend. Kicking back with my pipe and a little bit of scotch. Got a little bit of the CAO Moon Trance. I am a huge fan of this. I don't bring it out very often, but really solid aromatic, a little bit of vanilla note to it, maybe just a hint of a bourbon flavor, but really enjoy it. That said, it is Memorial Day weekend, which is a strange way to call, what it is, but it's 3-day weekend here in the US of A, and a chance for us to reflect on the importance of the men and women who have died to keep the USA, free. Tremendous respect for our veterans. Posted a video a little earlier. Of course, this will pop up tomorrow, which is Saturday, even though it's Friday Philosophy. But posted a Friday evening video of a flag mural that I painted last summer that I got a chance to reflect a little bit on in a video. So check that out if you haven't seen it. But Memorial Day weekend, aside from what it means from a veteran's standpoint and the importance there, and certainly that takes precedence over everything else, but as I was mowing my lawn today, I got to reminisce a little bit about the good old days growing up as a Ute in a very small town in central Nebraska. About 150 people in total. Very small town, obviously. About 4 city blocks by 4 city blocks square. I lived on the corner of Socrates and Andromache streets. Our street names were all Greek gods and philosophers, which is one of the coolest things I think I've ever heard. But yeah, so I grew up at Socrates and Andromache streets. But Memorial Day was a special time in my childhood, in my youth. Sorry. My mother and I, from the time I was in, I suppose, about 6th grade, we took care of our local cemetery. And like most places, every year we had a Memorial Day service at the local cemetery. So the entire week leading up to Memorial Day meant getting out of school, hopping into mom's car, driving an hour to the local cemetery so that we could mow and then hand trim around every gravestone and every freestanding plant in the cemetery. Mowing it alone was about 16 man hours. Add the trimming to it, we put in over 40 hours in evenings leading up to Memorial Day. And it was painful. And as a kid, I didn't truly understand the importance of that. But my mother took great pride in it. And now, as an adult, I certainly see the fruits of that labor and how important that really was. Not just to my mother, but to everyone that visited the cemetery that day, whether it was for a fallen veteran or a past veteran or just a past family member. The appreciation of seeing that someone cared enough, they didn't know it was us necessarily, but that someone cared enough to care for those stones, to care for that cemetery, meant so much to those people. And it means so much to me now when I go visit, especially now that both of my parents have passed. Seeing a tidy, well cared for cemetery means a lot to me. But on to the youth days of Memorial Day. My father was an Army veteran, but non wartime. He fell between Korea and Vietnam. And I think that bothered him a little bit because his father, of course, was a World War II veteran. And that was the greatest generation. And everybody knew it. I mean, that was obviously an important component of our history in the U.S. But Dad was never wartime, and I think he always felt a little bad that he was not able to serve in the same capacity. I think our perception of that has changed over the years, and it's okay not to serve in wartime. We'd actually prefer it that way. But nevertheless, Memorial Day was always a special time for my dad. So along with doing the Memorial Day service, he and all of his fellow veteran friends would go to the local bar following the service. And what that meant for me as a kid was free reign on the town. And that's a pretty big deal when you're in a 6th grade, 5th grade, 8th grade, whatever. Again, very small town. About a dozen kids in total in my town, but most Memorial Days, about 8 of them would end up at my house because they knew my parents were out enjoying Memorial Day and talking with friends and talking old war stories. Even my father, non-wartime, had war stories that were pretty epic. So that was their Memorial Day, so we had ours. And we weren't troublemakers. It wasn't about going out and causing mischief, but that gave a chance for us to play games and just have fun as a community, because pretty much everybody in our town was engaged in the same activity that day. Memorial service, local bar. So the kids, that was a chance for us to all hang out as a group, which didn't happen very often. But we had a game called Barbary. It was a holdover thing from the 70s, and it may have been something locally invented. I don't know. But it was tag team hide and seek. And a quarter of the town, we had a special area where we knew everybody's yards and whatnot, and they didn't have a problem with us just running around. And we would play basically tag team hide and seek. And a single round would probably last 15 to 20 minutes, and you would certainly get your exercise in this mess. A lot of running, and we had video games at that time, but we didn't mess around with it during Memorial Day weekend. That was not what that was for. This was us hanging out as a group and just really being kids in the truest of senses. Now, on top of that, or I should say past that, as we got a little older, some kids went off to college and whatnot, but in my high school days, my house became the movie theater. I had, over my working years as a junior high kid, purchased a TV and a VCR, and had those in my house, in my room. And I know it sounds like I'm a rich kid, but I assure you, first of all, I had to work for it and purchase them on my own. But secondly, my parents didn't even own a VCR. They didn't want one, they didn't see a need for it, and they said, if you want one, you go buy one. So I did. But we watched an awful lot of rated R movies during Memorial Day that my mother were she still alive, would probably shake her finger at me and say, "You were watching that?" Not a big fan of the cussing, obviously not a big fan of sex and not of violence, but my mom didn't really know what we got away with, and I'm sure you guys all have stories like that too. But we would, my friends and I, would hang out at the house and watch movies, sometimes 6, 8 hours worth of movies on a Memorial Day. And there might be 8 kids in my bedroom, which meant 3 or 4 sitting on the bed, one sitting at my desk, a couple on the floor. We had to pull chairs in from other rooms, and just really enjoying community. And before we knew what that really meant, we were just hanging out. We were just friends hanging out. But that's something that as adults we don't really do very well. We don't just call people up or just get together in random groups and just hang out and enjoy one another's company. You might engage in some of that if you go to your local pub. I don't know, but there was something so special about that part of childhood. And it only happened once a summer. It was Memorial Day. There was no gathering on Labor Day. There was no gathering on the 4th of July. But Memorial Day, as kids, we had nothing else to do. So we all got together as a group and enjoyed one another's company. I think it was wonderful. I mean, it was just spectacular for me as a kid. But I don't think the younger generations appreciate what that really means. But I'm not even sure that we as adults appreciate what that just coming together and enjoying one another's company. I don't think we get what that really means anymore. And it was such a simple thing when you were kids. You even hung out with kids you didn't like. It didn't matter. You were just hanging out and having fun. But nevertheless, that's the siren song of my beagle. Speaking the language of his people, sitting in his own lawn chair. Yeah, he is more spoiled than most children. You go get him. Night and day. Night and day. It might be 3 o'clock in the morning. If the window's open, siren song. Somebody's walking by. But I digress. What it all boils down to, I guess, is those communal moments, those moments that we have now with our friends and our family. It can't be overlooked that those moments are largely made possible because of the sacrifices of our parents, our grandparents, our uncles, cousins, brothers, sisters, in some cases, you guys as veterans. You can't wrap your arms around it when you're a kid, and you don't even know why it's happening, but I can look back now and have a much deeper understanding for why we were allowed as kids to just come together on a day like Memorial Day and really share friendship and family with one another. And it was second nature. But if it wasn't for the brave men and women who have fought and died for the US of A, those moments could never happen. And many of us have a friend in Venezuela right now, in the pseudonym of Pipe and Music, who is not allowed the same luxury, the same freedoms that we've got. And I can't even imagine. I can't. I don't want to. I don't even want to really think about it other than to really try to wrap my arms around how lucky we all are in the USA, in Canada, in Great Britain, in most democratic free nations these days. And, even outside of the USA, it's largely veterans that have paved the way for freedom and democracy in the world today. So, gonna try to wrap it up there, not be too terribly solemn on all of this, but thank your family members, your friends, others that you run across that have been active in the military. If you have been in the military, thank you from me. But this is an important weekend. It's a reflective weekend, and thankfully here, at least in Nebraska, it's going to be a very beautiful weekend. I've got a short road trip tomorrow, and then Sunday yard work, and Monday hopefully just sitting on the patio enjoying a nice pipe and maybe some nicer scotch. Nevertheless, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, hope you have a great weekend. I hope you enjoyed a little Friday philosophy, and we'll talk to you again soon.